I think the universe wants to test just how bad you want it. How bad do you want to succeed? To make it to the top 5% or the top 1%, you have to beat out 95% or 99% of your opponents. Everyone else that's competing for the same type of thing. I was a financial advisor. I wanted to help people become wealthy, and only 1% ever make it to that status level. So by definition, you have to be better than 99% of people that are around you. This is the book that I wrote, Why They Buy. And you can see the acronym on here, B.A.N.K. What traditional sales training says is people will buy from you when they know you, like you, and trust you. But what I figured out is what creates the know, like, and trust factor is the match of the personality style.
Cheri's take on emotional intelligence will give you more emotional intelligence, help you make more sales, make more money.
The average person settles and the extraordinary person never does. You have to be relentless. And I love that quote, good is the enemy of great. I wanted great.
The science of biology, B-U-Y, how people buy, get into the mindset, make rapport. Here's Cheri Tree. All right, Cheri, I've got to ask your definition of success. Like, after all your experiences, how do you define it today?
I have a formula for success, and it's mindset plus skill set plus tool set equals jet set. So I think you need all three of them. Someone who has just a positive mindset without the skill set and without the tools is just going to be, a little bit delusional, and eventually we'll get frustrated. So I think it's a combination of a formula to create that.
Yeah, that's the formula. But if you go to how do you define success? Like, what is, for you to say, okay, I am successful, what does that look like or feel like to you today?
I mean, I wear this mantra. I had it engraved on one of these road ID bracelets because this is kind of the way that I live by. But it says, champions never quit. Failure is not an option. No fear, no excuses, just do it. And that kind of became my theory for success. Like, you get knocked down, and I've taken some pretty hard punches, but you got to get back up. You got to keep moving forward. And I think people who succeed are the ones who get back up and keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go back to that formulaic approach then, because it's interesting. It sometimes makes it easy for people to have a formula. How did you come across that? What was it that brought you to that realization? Or break down each of the three and give us why that was a part for you.
Yeah, I think, mindset is really about developing mental toughness. And I was a student of personal development. I started off reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad out of college. And that started to change my mind around even working for money versus having money work for me. And I knew I had the entrepreneur spirit. I knew I needed to go in that direction. And so developing that strong mindset, embracing personal development, developing your leadership skills, your communication skills, relationship skills, emotional intelligence, all of that was such an important part, because when life gets really tough, your mindset has to be stronger than the adversity that's attacking you. So that's a key piece of it.
I like that word, the adversity that's attacking you. And by the way, you just made me feel old right there. You said coming out of college, you read Robert's book. I was there with Robert's first book. And when Sharon and Robert wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was like, dang, I must have been in this industry too long.
But that's what makes you a legend.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know about that. But the adversity attacking you, why those words? Because I think that's important.
I think the universe wants to test just how bad you want it. How bad do you want to succeed? To make it to the top 5% or the top 1%, you have to beat out 95% or 99% of your opponents. Everyone else that's competing for the same type of thing. I was a financial advisor. I wanted to help people become wealthy, and only 1% ever make it to that status level. So by definition, you have to be better than 99% of people that are around you, which means you have to be willing to swim upstream. You have to go against the current. You have to go defy the odds. And the world is not here to support people to win. It's here to create mediocrity, I think, in most cases. And the average person settles, and the extraordinary person never does. So you have to be relentless.
Dang. It's like the motivational speech I needed this today, Cheri. I needed this today.
Yeah, let's put on our gym clothes.
Yeah. Mindset number one. Number two, take me through. How did you realize it? Define it for me.
Yeah, you mean on the second part of the formula, skill set? So skill set, once you have the mindset, you have to have some skills. Like, you can have positive thinking and read good books and listen to podcasts, but if you actually don't go develop the skills, then when you go do the thing, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be defeated. And we all suck at the beginning. Like when I started off in sales, I sucked. My first year, I made $700 total. Like,
Yeah, you actually lost money your first year in sales.
totally. I racked up massive amounts of credit card debt trying to figure out how to crack the code of being an entrepreneur and surviving financially. I did not do a good job in the beginning. That's part of my story. But you have to develop the skill sets. Like in sales, you need to learn how to communicate with people. You have to learn how to approach people, network with people, build relationships with people. You have to go out on a ledge. You need to take risks, have to get outside of your comfort zone, and developing skill sets that allow you to do that make it easier and you get better. It's like going from white belt to black belt. And all of a sudden, this becomes the easiest thing you've ever done. And then it becomes fun. It becomes profitable. You develop a lot of confidence. And so the skill set is critical to do.
Yeah, I love that feeling of going to that unconscious competence. It's like, I was chatting with one of my kids yesterday, and we're talking about, well, Gary just says make more content. Well, if you don't have a good message, it doesn't matter how much content you make if it's bad. And so skill set got to be there. Okay, so mindset, skill set, third component?
Toolset. So once you develop the skills, you need to use the tools. And there's a lot of tools that are out there and different types of tools. If you're going to cut down a tree, you could use your hand, a butter knife, a saw, or a chainsaw. And the tool is going to help you to become a lot more efficient. And now this is how do you maximize time? How do you shorten sales cycles? How do you speed up so that you, in my opinion, the real definition of wealth is not just money, it's time plus money. So if you can be a lot more efficient, just like the cell phone made us more efficient, the computer made us more efficient, artificial intelligence today is making us a lot more productive. We can do a lot more things in a lot less time. And so having the right tool sets and being willing to spend money on tool sets. This isn't where you want to be stingy. You don't want to be stingy on developing your mindset. You don't want to be stingy on developing skill sets, and you don't want to be stingy on purchasing access to tool sets, because that is what's going to create the jet set life, which is the life that you want to live.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, AI is, I think about how much I get done a week now using the AI tools, and we're about to launch the Action Coach AI, coaching people every day just automatically. I mean, it's so much more powerful. So tools are very important. Let's actually go back into your story just a second, because I often ask people, when did you choose success? And I think you've had to choose it several times in life, right?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a fighter pilot, my mom was a teacher, there were 6 kids, and I think early on there was indications that I wanted to be successful, whether that's selling the most Girl Scout cookies or, the most, candy I sold in the band to raise money. Like you develop some of those early instincts, the lemonade stand and so forth. But as I graduated from college and read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it solidified my commitment to being an entrepreneur, to owning a business and having money work for me versus me working for money. And that was a very early decision. I didn't know how to do it, but one of the things that Kiyosaki said was, if you're going to be great in business, you've got to be great in sales. And I remember his story of the Xerox salesman and his path. And I decided I was going to take the path. I became a financial advisor working in a full commission model. And that's where I broke away from my corporate job and said, I'm going to venture out. I'm going to take massive risks, but it's do or die, sink or swim. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, your definition of success at that stage was probably very different to how you define it today.
Yeah, I mean, success back then for me was I want to make a 6-figure income. Like I really want to make $100,000 a year. What the corporate job that I got graduating from college was so insulting. I mean, my watch was literally more than what I was offered in a salary.
It's like, but you messed it up. Cheri, you messed it up. You started making millions a year. I gotta say,
Oh, I know. Starting at the bottom is really tough, right? So they did not value anything about me. I was just a number in their plan.
But you were learning. That's the thing. You were learning. You were being paid to learn. And I think a lot of young people forget that you got to get paid to learn.
100%. You have to be an apprentice. Like, treat yourself like an apprentice, like an intern. You must develop these skill sets before the universe or the world or the economy is ever going to reward you at the top 5%, 1% club. Like, I mean, you have to work your way all the way up, and you've got to beat out and outpace everybody else that's trying to go after the same type of thing. So
crazy. So let's go through that then, because success and failure sometimes have a relationship with each other. You're doing amazing, creating millions a year, and you stopped. Explain how that happened. And because I think there's a lot of people that are going down a road and they're going so fast and so quick, and then they realize they're on the wrong road, but they just don't want to change. You changed. How, what? Give us that story, because the storage shed's a big part of this thing.
Yeah, the first part of my story was I needed to create the breakthrough in the first place, and in the sales world, I feel like I was spoon fed one of the greatest lies ever told, which was that sales is a numbers game. In order to get more yeses, you have to get more nos. And I bought into that lie for 5 years, and it really put me into a hustle and grind phase, which wasn't fun. It was terribly defeating. I remember being $30,000 in credit card debt, renting an apartment, couldn't qualify for a home, and I was driving a salvage title BMW playing the fake it till you make it game. I mean, I literally had a set of jumper cables in my car because my car would just die in spontaneous places. I was terrified it would die in front of my client's home. I mean, it was a nightmare. And I remember this other quote from Kiyosaki where he said, "Stop taking advice from people more messed up than you." And I was like, whoa, that was a mic drop moment. I should not be giving people financial advice until I figured out how to make a lot of money on my own. So I decided I wanted to figure out, instead of going for no, I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I wanted to go for yes. And I wanted to figure out if I could get a yes. And the more I started digging and discovering, like, sales is not a numbers game, it's a people game. And that led me to personality science. And I've basically cracked the code on how do I communicate with people using personality profiling, but in a completely new way that had never been done before. I essentially reverse engineered the concept of personality types, figured out who my buyer was, and exactly what triggered a yes or a no outcome. And my experiment, I called it B.A.N.K, which was the framework. And in 1 year using it as an experiment, my income jumped from 72,000 to over $500,000. So it's 7x increase. And I did it in 1/3 the time. And now I'm like, okay, this is really cool. And I kept doing it. And within 3 years, my income was over $1 million a year. So for me, at 33 years old, I was making over $1 million a year, and I started to make millions of dollars. And then something happened. I was a sales rep for a company. I was a 1099 contractor. There started to be some politics. There started to be some weird jealousy. And the company kind of pulled me aside and wanted to put some handcuffs on me. And I said, no, this bank system is really working. It's helping a lot of people. I want to pursue that. So I resigned. And when I resigned, they were threatened by that, and they sued me. So this is when another massive failure came into my life, because it was 2008 when I resigned. I was heavily leveraged in real estate. I'd been putting a lot of my money into being a rich dad student. I was investing in real estate. My cash flow went to negative $65,000 within months. I had no income. I'm fighting a $250,000 lawsuit in federal court, protecting myself. And I couldn't start a business during this time because of non-compete, non-solicitation. I had to prove in court that I was innocent, which took time. And I ended up winning the lawsuit, but filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So it was a win-lose. And, I moved out of my $2 million home that I had a $1 million home in Hawaii. Like, I was living that life. And I gave it all back to the bank and moved into an industrial sized storage unit. I didn't have a pot to pee in, literally. I had to go to the camp store to get a luggable loo, a 5-gallon bucket, make that my toilet, and a gym membership so I could shower. And I lived in that storage unit for 18 months. And in that storage unit is where I built the first prototype of my bank system to turn it into an actual product. Like, it was crazy times. Yeah.
It takes a lot of gumption to recognize and to stop down a road. And I kept thinking, and as you always tell your story, I keep thinking if you'd stayed average and you'd stayed mediocre, there would have been no pressure on you. No one would have come to you with a golden handcuff, and no one would have. And that's where I think a lot of people just, it's scary going for success. It's, and I think that your story, if it can do anything, it can tell people that, yeah, go as hard as you can. You can always come back from a drop back.
Well, one of my favorite quotes that's been a quote for a long time, and I don't even know who said it, but it's, you can't steal second base and keep your foot on first. Right. So I just wanted to, what do you really have to lose? At the end of the day, even with bankruptcy, living in a storage unit, my own family didn't know I was there. Um, you know, it was, I didn't die. Like, I was still alive. I still managed to feed myself, and I had to go out there and hustle. And sometimes that adversity, it does, if it doesn't kill you, it does make you stronger. I heard this analogy once that said, when you have an egg with a little chick inside and it's trying to peck its way out of the shell, if you feel sad for that and you're like, oh, let me go open it for you and help you out, little guy, it's actually what kills the little chick, because it doesn't develop enough fortitude and muscle strength to peck its way out of its own shell. And we as humans, we have to have that adversity. It's like the pressure of against the coal to transform into a diamond. You need massive amounts of pressure. And yes, it can crush you. And maybe an average person isn't cut out for it. And the mediocre path of good enough is good enough. But for me, and I love that quote, good is the enemy of great. I wanted great. I wanted extraordinary, not average.
Yeah, it's funny, that pressure thing is called perturbation. It's actually a part of the thermonuclear dynamic laws. So without pressure, there is no growth, and there must be pressure and there must be availability of space to grow into. So that's really cool. All right. So your definition of success shifted. You went back, you decided, I'm going to create something. You went back to your natural state. You created B.A.N.K. Now let's get into B.A.N.K. a little, because that's really why, one of the reasons I wanted you on here today, for people to learn this thing. The funny part of us being here today is the people watching and listening on this podcast are the people that don't really need to, but they know if they keep learning and keep coming back, success happens naturally. B.A.N.K. It's about a natural way to create sales success is sort of my feeling about it. Teach us B.A.N.K. in the give us the summary, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah. So the summary was that, the whole concept of going for no, right? Like I mentioned earlier, it just assumes that you're just going to go out there and blab your sales pitch to random customers, dollar for dollar, like hit the streets or social media or advertising, whatever. But it's a one size fits all approach is actually foolish. So as I dug into it and discovered personality science that dates back thousands of years to Hippocrates, the father of medicine, he basically figured out that the entire human race could be divided into 4 different groups. And each group was so different from another, he could treat them with medicine differently. And that was the origin of what he called the 4 temperaments, or personality type theory. And when you fast forward to our modern day world, there's been all these different personality assessment models that have been created, like DISC or MBTI, Keirsey, color code, so forth. You can literally figure out what color you are.
And they're all 4, amazingly enough.
Right. And I took those assessments too. And in the beginning, I was fascinated with what I learned about myself. But my fascination turned into frustration, Brad, when I realized not one single one of those assessment models ever made me more money. Not one of them ever helped me close more sales or put money in the bank. And this is where I had the breakthrough thought. I said, wait a minute, if it's been proven for thousands of years that there's 4 different types of people, I wonder if they make buying decisions differently. And I wonder if what makes one person say yes makes another person say no. And that's when I had this idea. I said, show me an assessment who can tell me not who I am, but who my buyer is and why they buy. So instead of basing it in psychology, I didn't care if they were introverted, extroverted, for example. I wanted it based in what I call biology, spelled B-U-Y-ology, which was the science of buying behavior. I wanted to know what triggered a yes or a no outcome. It didn't exist, so I built one as an experiment, and the acronym of B.A.N.K. represented my 4 types of buyers, and specifically the formula of what would trigger a yes or no outcome. And I began using it just simply as an experiment, and it worked.
Yeah. And now, millions of people later, here we are. All right, let's go through the B.A.N.K. Let's go through them.
Yeah, so this is kind of visual. So this is the book that I wrote, Why They Buy, and you can see the acronym on here, bank. So the B in bank, I use the color blue. They're a colder person to approach. Very conservative, kind of inside the box, risk averse. So B stands for blueprint. And when you're selling to a blueprint type of person, they're skeptical. They don't trust you right off the bat. They're going to want you to dot the I's, cross the T's, deliver the fine print, deliver it within or under budget, on time, ahead of time, and so forth. So they have a certain set of values that are driving their buying behavior. And if you're not aware of it, if you accidentally trip across a tripwire, you're going to lose the sale. And that's the blueprint type, right? You're 10 minutes late to an appointment. Sorry, they're not going to give you a second chance. The A in bank, the red one, that's like the firecracker. They act like they just drank Red Bull for breakfast or want red VIP carpet treatment. A stands for action. Yeah. You're like, that's the one that burns the bridges, burns the boats, and says, I'm just going to go for it. I'd rather chase the upside potential than be stuck in the status quo. Nobody's going to tell me what I'm worth in my life. And an action personality type is just going to hit the ground running. They're going to get back up and keep doing it again. So that's that framework. And then the N in bank, I use the color yellow for nurturing. They're warm like sunshine, they're sweet like honey, and they've got a heart of gold. So a nurturing person is the type that really wants to build relationships. They want an authentic connection with you. They don't want to feel like a number or a dollar sign on their head. They buy into the mission more than ever making the money. They're the givers, and they're incredible people, and you need a lot of them in your company, in your community, and so forth. And they require a different approach. If you come at them all salesy and aggressive or cold, they're not gonna warm up to you. And then the K in bank, the green that I use, the K stands for knowledge. And a knowledge personality type, the reason I use green, these people love data so much, science, numbers, etc. I think Microsoft Excel spreadsheet logo is green, right? Or in the movie The Matrix, the computer code that falls across the screen. So knowledge person needs data. They need science. They need numbers. They need proof. They need case studies. They have a forever list of questions, because the truth is you can't close a K. A K has to close themselves. And most salespeople don't know how to deliver the right type of content at the right time in order for the K to draw its own conclusion that it's the right decision and a smart decision to move forward and to close the deal, for example. So they get stuck in a loop of analysis paralysis, right? It takes forever for them to buy. So once I figured out the construct of the bank code, what I then realized, and this was really key, was that every person in the world was not just one of these four, they were a combination of all four. And that's what I call their bank code. So if you think of a bank code like a PIN code, right? You pull out your debit card, go put it into the ATM machine. It wants you to enter a 4-digit PIN code if you want your money to come out. Well, every human has a 4-digit bank code. And if you know that bank code sequence, a yes will come out. So everything that I was building was designed around, how do I figure out what that bank code sequence is of my customer? How can I do it in less than 90 seconds and now nanoseconds with AI? And that's kind of what shifted everything for me, was figuring out how to crack that code.
Now, when you and I sat down together, I think you pegged me in about 30 seconds. I don't even think it took 90 seconds for you to peg me and the color coded. And I think I was even wearing the right color when we first sat down together. It was like, dang, I even wore the color on the thing. So if I just want to get into professional sales versus someone who's just in sales.
Yes.
I've been forever a teacher of professional salespeople, and I think it's professionally helping people to buy. Why do some salespeople not use these tools or do the investment? I just don't get that. I mean, you trained, gotta be tens of thousands of salespeople now, or maybe actually probably hundreds of thousands now.
Yeah, we've got clients in over 100 different countries, so all over. But I think part of it's, what I found, every sales training I'd ever gone to, every book I'd ever read on sales was telling me the same thing, that sales was a numbers game. There was challenging the idea that says, what if it's not? What if sales is actually a people game? And what if we shift from studying sales and sales tactics and strategies to actually studying people and people communication strategies, what if? And Brad, this is actually a good point. Let me share a really cool study that was done by the Chali group. They asked the question, and they said, do personality types matter in the sales process? And they came back and published something that blew my mind, but validated everything that I figured out the hard way. They said only 18% of buyers are going to buy from a salesperson who does not match the buyer's personality type versus 82% success rate when personality types are aligned.
Hang on, say that again. What percent?
Only 18% of buyers are going to buy from a salesperson who doesn't match the personality type of the buyer.
So if I can't match their personality type, I've got a 1 in 5 chance of making a sale.
Exactly. Versus 4 out of 5 chance of closing the sale if you as a salesperson can just match the personality type of the buyer or the decision maker. And that was a boom for me.
Yeah, it's like, tell me your script. Your script doesn't matter if they don't get along with you. If you're out of rapport, it doesn't matter. If you can't match their personality, it doesn't matter what it is. Got it.
That's right. And what traditional sales training says is people will buy from you when they know you, like you, and trust you. Well, what I figured out is what creates the know, like, and trust factor is the match of the personality style.
Yeah, you can do that in 10 seconds or 90 seconds, as you said, or you can do that over, 17 interactions and all that sort of stuff as the technology.
This was the strategy that I created. Was I literally built a set of 4 cards that had keywords on them, values. And I simply would hand them to my client and ask them to crack their code, ask them to sort them in order of priority, most important to them, most like them, down to least important, least like them. I told them this is going to help me serve you better, get to know you better, and save us both some time. And then I would shut up and watch what would happen because it was an experiment. I didn't know if they would even do this exercise.
Yeah, you had me do it. We were sitting there in Vegas.
Brad, every person I've ever asked over 20 years has done this exercise. You can't even believe. People love it. They're fascinated by it. And then they end up sequencing those cards in a way that cracks their code. And they hand it back. They're literally handing me the Holy Grail. Here's exactly how they want to be communicated with. And here's where the yes is. And here's how to avoid the no. So.
And the best part is you let me keep the cards.
I mean, yes, don't leave home without them. You're a card-carrying member now. Yeah, this is very powerful.
I'm bank coded. So let's go a step further then, because I think it's also bringing in emotional intelligence into the whole sales field. I think that, when Goldman put forward emotional intelligence, it wasn't necessarily for sales, but I think you've taken it that step further and said, okay, how do we get high levels of emotional intelligence in sales scenarios?
Well, so let's start off by defining emotional intelligence. It's 2 parts. It's understanding of self and ability to self-regulate. And it's the understanding of the other person and your ability to match them where they're at based on their needs. Okay. So it requires a significant degree of empathy, connection with another human being, and the fortuitousness to actually understand, and strategy that if you can match them where they're at, you're actually going to get a lot more of what you want to. So I'll role play this. Look, my dominant personality is the red one, action. So the way that I come at life, if you're watching the video feed of this podcast, I put on a red set of lenses. This is the way that Cheri sees life, and I'm a go, 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 pedal to the metal, just like you type of person. But when you meet someone who's totally different, let's say you take off the red glasses, you meet someone who's nurturing, the yellow one, take off your set of lenses, put on their set of lenses. And all of a sudden you can see life through their perspective instead of forcing them ignorantly or arrogantly to listen to your point of view. So emotional intelligence allows me to meet them where they're at. I tone it down. My voice becomes a lot more calm, a lot more soft and gentle. I approach them differently. I talk about different communication points based on what I know is important to them. And as you do that, all of a sudden the connection is built. The relationship of trust is built, and moving forward becomes the easiest thing you've ever done. Now, if you do this in a non-manipulative way, which requires emotional intelligence, intent. If your intent is genuinely to serve your customer and help them be in a better position for their life or their business, then the only failure is the failure to close the sale. And therefore, let's not be ignorant or arrogant. Let's take our lens off, put their lens on, and watch what happens. Your close rate ought to potentially triple.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, Cheri, it goes back to, I got some advice as a young man in sales that was, you need to be on the same side of the desk or walk down the road the same way with your prospect. And I feel like a lot of what you've taught me and everyone with B.A.N.K helps me, I guess, become their guide or their advisor or their trusted advisor sort of status. It brings me into that place.
100%. Going back to emotional intelligence, if they feel like you understand them and that you're seeing life through their eyes, from their point of view, in their shoes, and you can now solve their problem without trying to sell them something, you're on the same team. And now you've created this synergy between the two of you. Stephen M.R. Covey wrote the book, The Speed of Trust. This personality match, if you're genuinely doing it, creates the speed of trust literally in seconds that allows you to be far more effective and create a lot more impact for people.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I had Steve come on the podcast too with me once, and we talked about that whole trust thing, and it really is a different scenario. So, yeah.
Well, hey there, and thanks for listening. I've noticed that 78% of you are brand new, which means you haven't hit the subscribe button yet. By subscribing, you help us bring on even better guests, better quality content, and serve you better with even more podcasts. So please hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. It makes a huge difference. If you support us, we're going to support your success and help you achieve big success together.
Okay. How long does it take a salesperson to learn to master the other?
Okay. I mean, people ask me all the time, how long does it take for B.A.N.K to work? It works immediately because the science works immediately. So then it's a matter of, will the salesperson have some courage to ask their customer to crack their code? And you can do it the hard way, which is just guessing. And we'll teach you how to have your best guess. We call it speed coding. But why subject yourself to the element of risk? If you guess, you could get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you could easily lose the sale. And now you're playing the numbers game, which is a high stakes game. I'd rather play to win and ask my client to crack their code. This is going to create a bond between you and them. They automatically are going to build rapport with you as you do this. You can share what your code is. And I disclose to them why I'm asking them to do it. I'll say, Brad, if you take a look at these cards, it has the word values on top. Whoop. And if you're willing to share with me what your values are, then we can prioritize our time today based on what's most important to you, instead of potentially wasting your time based on what's most important to me. You say that to a real human being, their trust and respect for you goes up, because who else is doing that? No one.
Yeah, we have for many years in our franchise sales process actually run profiling tools with people, and we've got some internal ones that we developed. And we make it part of the application process, and literally they're writing down, here's how to do it. And that's what you've cracked for everybody in every space. Cheri, if let's finish off with two different aspects, okay? Number one, other than learning B.A.N.K, what makes someone a great salesperson today, other than B.A.N.K?
Well, I think it's emotional intelligence. I love the book from Jeb Blount, Sales EQ. I wish I co-authored that with him, but I think it's the emotional intelligence. It's not about knowing your product and all your spec sheets and the features and benefits or pricing models. That's not, it literally is such a small fraction of the sales process. It's your ability to build that relationship of trust and rapport with the client in a way that's meaningful to them. And I think that separates the top producers from everyone else.
Yeah, it's interesting that in today's world, from me as a marketer first, most people are 70% of the way down the road of making the purchase decision before they get in touch with a salesperson anyway. So they've done that detail stuff. They've watched, learned, studied. They have that product knowledge as good as the salesperson. You look at buying a car today, I'm already down the road. I already picked the two models that I want to choose from, and I'm only talking to a salesperson to help me with that last 20, 30, 10% of the decision. So emotional intelligence. Final question then. the subject of success. It's my favorite subject. What, in your opinion, is the best advice you ever got about how to be successful, or even the best quote you read on the subject of success?
There's so many of them when you're a student of personal development. But I remember memorizing this quote from Tom Hopkins. He said, "I'm not judged by the number of times I fail, but by the number of times I succeed. And the number of times I succeed is in direct proportion to the number of times I can fail and keep trying." So it's not easy to make it to the top 1%, but when you keep trying and you can stand back up when failure knocks you down, that's where that mental toughness comes in. That's where the skill set comes in. That's where the tool set comes in. Then you will absolutely achieve your pinnacle. And that's victory.
Love it. You're on the Big Success Podcast. Share this with everybody you know, because you know everyone else wants more success. And if you can help them get it, they'll keep making sure you get more of it too. We'll be back next week with more of your success. Hit those show notes. Study it all.
You've been listening to the Big Success Podcast with the #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars. To learn more about how to achieve business and personal success, as well as how to level up or listen to past episodes, visit www.bradsugars.com.